Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. Yeah, so today before we go to the video, it's very special that we reached 10,000 subscribers on our channel. So thanks a lot for all the love and support. Also the feedback that you people share to me on the channel. So yeah, let's move on to the topic for today. So we're at day 14 and for the viewers who are watching our videos for the very first time, we are doing a 45 days of DevOps course where we will try to cover most of the aspects of DevOps, and we'll also talk about interview questions. We'll talk about scenarios. We'll talk about some real-time projects which I've already done. I think in the last 13 days we did two real-time projects. One is with respect to AWS. We did one shell scripting real-time project. So going ahead, we'll also do real-time projects with Ansible, Terraform. We'll do Kubernetes, Docker, everything. Perfect. So yeah, the topic for today is configuration management. So configuration management is one of the simplest topics in DevOps. Okay, so the reason why I said it's very simple is, you know, uh, unlike the other topics which include slight here are their complexities, but if you want to start learning configuration management, or even at least follow today's video and tomorrow's video that we are going to do on configuration management, I think you will definitely get a good understanding of configuration management and you will feel pretty confident about it, right? So this is my promise. Whoever is going to watch video today and tomorrow, so tomorrow we'll do some projects on Ansible, and today's video I'm going to explain theoretically about configuration management and why Ansible is used very widely in the field of configuration management. Okay, so perfect. Configuration management. So what is it, and why is it the buzzing words in DevOps? Like you hear about CI/CD, you hear about configuration management, infrastructure management. So these are some of the common key terms that you see in almost every resume, or sorry, I mean to say almost every job description in DevOps. So configuration management is a way how the DevOps engineer manage the configuration of the servers or configuration of the infrastructure. Okay, so now what is it? I know for the very first time, if somebody is hearing this, it might be slightly complicated, but let's try to understand with a problem like we every time do. Let's say there is a let's say there is a system administrator. Okay, because before, like I told you in the previous videos, before DevOps, it was either system administrator, build and release configuration engineers, or some other people, because DevOps was only came into evolution when all of these things merged together. So let's say there is a system administrator. Okay, so you are a system admin, and as a system admin, your company was using on-premises server. Okay, so let's say this is a on-premises server that your company is using. Okay, on this on-premises server, what is on-premises? That means you have your servers on your data center, that is on your current, let's say you have your you're working for Amazon or you're working for Flipkart, so they host their own data centers. Previously every company used to host their data center. So let's say you had like bunch of servers on your data center, and let's say you have 100 of these servers. Okay, and each of this server, let's say you have 50 of them hosted on Linux. Okay, 25 of them on CentOS, and 25 of them on Ubuntu. Okay, so you created all of these servers, the system administrator created all of these servers, and he is managing all of these servers. By managing, it means like whenever you have your servers that you are managing by your own, you have to do bunch of things, right? Like you have to take care of upgrades. Always you can't be on the same version. Like for example, if CentOS is using version 9 today, so tomorrow if CentOS is going to version 10, you have to upgrade to version 10, because there will be a lot of security patches and all of the other things that is required, or to improve the performance of your distribution. So point number one is upgrade. Point number two is secure patches. So let's say there is one issue that is found on Android on your phone. What you will do, you will immediately update to the new version or upgrade to the new version. Similarly, on even your servers, you have to constantly upgrade to the patches. Three, installations. So there might be some default installations that your organization might require. Okay, so let's say your organization is using Git. So every time you create a server, instead of developers installing Git, you can install Git by default. Or you want to install Git, or sometimes there is a requirement that for every developer you give a server, you need to have a database installed by default, because you can save some developers time. So let's say these are the three important features or three important tasks that the system administrator is doing. Now, to do it on some 20 to 30 servers, or even in this case there are 100 servers. Let's say you are a team of 5 people. Okay, even if you're a team of 5 people, so you'll find it extremely difficult to log into each of these 100 servers and to create these packages, update these packages, or make some default installations, right? Because if you are 5 members and there are 100 servers, so each of them gets 20 servers, right? So you have to SSH to these 20 servers, or if it is a Windows box, you have to use some WinRM protocol, or you have to take some remote connection, and you have to log into this 50 or 25 Windows machines. And you have to like in this example, I mean to say this is Windows. Okay, so if you have 50 Windows, 25 CentOS, 25 Ubuntu, every time logging into each of them and creating these packages is difficult. So what was the option that previously people used to do? Okay, so now I can tell you that there are some advanced tools like Ansible or some other things. So what were these people used to do? I mean, what these people used to do was they used to write some scripts. Okay, so the scripts was basically if it is a Linux box, okay, so write some shell script. Okay, if it is a Windows, write some PowerShell. Okay, again, even in Linux, let's say if it is for example CentOS, the command might change. If it is Ubuntu, the command might change. If it is PowerShell, it is a different command altogether. So this was the challenge, and now we were only talking about 100 servers, right? What if there are 1,000 servers? What if there were 10,000 servers? So each and every time, even if you write a shell script, like your shell script must loop over this 1,000 servers or loop over this 10,000 servers, and it has to install all of these packages using some shell commands, or using some PowerShell commands, or all of these things. So it was technically getting very difficult for the system administrators, and this was only about on premises. Now what happened after that was the entire thing, or the entire configuration was moving to cloud. Okay, and with cloud, the number of servers that were getting created has improved or increased to 10x. Okay, that means if previously you had some 1,000 servers, okay, after moving to cloud and after moving to the microservice architecture, okay, so what happened was the number of servers that were getting created has multiplied by 10x, and the size of the server has shrink down by 10x. That means previously, let's say if you were creating one physical server, okay, or one local server with 10 GB RAM, because of the microservice architecture, okay, what has happened is the number of servers that you are creating has increased, and the configuration or the compute or the resources inside the server has decreased. Okay, so that's why with the advancement of clouds, the number of servers that the DevOps engineers or system administrators were creating has increased leaps and bounds. Okay, number of number of servers has increased leaps and bounds. So now the problem has become even bigger, right? So the problem that we discussed in the previous slide has become even a bigger problem, because the servers has increased by 10x. So there was a need for a tool to be invented or discovered. Okay, so there was a definite need for a somebody to write an application that will solve this problem. What was the problem? Like if it was a Windows machine, okay, you had to write some PSH scripts or PowerShell scripts. If it was a Linux box, okay, the system administrators had to write some shell scripting, and again inside that shell scripting there were clause, right? So the clause was depending upon the distribution. That means, again, if it was a Ubuntu machine, then you have to take care of, it can be Ubuntu machine, it can be CentOS machine, or it can be some Alpine machine. By machine, I mean to say the server has Ubuntu distribution or CentOS distribution, Alpine distribution. So again, the shell script that you are writing might work or might not work. Okay, so this was the problem. One is you had to write in multiple programming languages like shell scripting or PowerShell scripting, and again, even if you write that, the problem was that distribution was changing, or or the commands were frequently changing, so even your script might work or might not work. So to address this problem, okay, there was a tool that was invented, or there was a even before the tool there was a concept that was discovered, that is that concept called configuration management. Okay. So what configuration management does is, configuration management will aim to solve the problem of configure or managing the configuration of multiple servers. Okay. So if you have multiple servers, this is a definite thing in any organization. Okay. So forget about a startup, or forget about MNC, or even forget about Mang companies. Every company these days has hundreds of servers, thousands of servers. Okay. Because of the advancement of cloud, microservices and everything, you have thousands of servers. So to manage these thousands of servers, the configuration of thousands of servers, there is a concept that was introduced that is called configuration management. So inside configuration management, there are some very popular tools. Okay. So they are nothing but, you have Puppet, you have Chef, you have Ansible. Okay. You had something like Salt. So these were some of the popular tools, okay, in the field of configuration management. But what is the eventual winner? That is Ansible. Okay. Now what I mean by winner? Okay. So by the meaning of winner, I mean to say, what is most number of users or DevOps engineers, which tool the most of DevOps engineers or the users found better. Okay. So there was Puppet, there was Chef, there was Ansible, there was Salt, but eventually people started to like Ansible, or people found Ansible much better than the other configuration management tools. Okay. So if you are a DevOps engineer, and if you go back for 6 to 7 years, I'm pretty sure everyone must have started their journey using Puppet or Chef. Okay. Because Puppet or Chef was the they were the first tools to implement the configuration management. So personally, I started with Puppet, and then I came to know that, okay, so Chef had some better features over Puppet, so let me move to Chef. So I have done that. After that, eventually in 2017 or sometime, I was introduced to Ansible, because Ansible was a tool that was getting that buzz, or Ansible was a tool that was gaining the popularity in 2016 2017 times. Even it was there before, but during 2016-17, Ansible has become very popular. And right now, Ansible is a tool that is constantly developed by people at Red Hat. Okay. So that's why it's called Red Hat Ansible. It was it went part of Red Hat, I think, in some 2019 or 2018. And people at Red Hat are constantly updating this Ansible modules, and now it has become a go-to tool for configuration management. Okay. So if somebody is asking me, or if you have a question that you want to start with configuration management, and if you are confused, do I have to start with Puppet, Chef, Ansible, or Salt? So the answer straightforward is, definitely start with Ansible. Okay. Because there is a very good chance that 90% of the times you go to an organization, like you start your DevOps journey in an organization, and 90% of the times your organization is using Ansible. Okay. So I'm not saying nobody is using Puppet, or nobody is using Chef, or nobody is using Salt, but majority of the people are using Ansible, and it is always better to go towards the tool that is popularly used. Okay. So once you learn about Ansible, then if you still have some time, definitely look for other options like Puppet or Chef or Salt, but start with Ansible, because to get you, it will allow you to get into a job. Now let's go to the important aspect, that if there are multiple tools, like I mentioned, let's just take we cannot compare about all of them. So if there is Puppet, okay, and if there is Ansible, so one of the commonly asked interview questions is, why Ansible? Okay. So everybody keeps asking this question, like, when you have Puppet and Ansible, or when you have Chef and Ansible, why did you choose Ansible, or why Ansible is better amongst the other configuration management tools? So to answer these questions, you need to firstly understand the architecture of Puppet and architecture of Ansible. So I'm not going to explain you the deep architecture and confuse you. There is a very simple way of things. Like, Puppet is a pull mechanism model, whereas Ansible is a push mechanism model. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Basically, if you are dealing things, or if you want to install some packages, let's take example of installing packages. Okay. So there is a DevOps engineer. Okay. So I'll explain you using some scenario. Let's say there is a DevOps engineer, and this DevOps engineer manages the AWS configuration of an organization. Okay. So in this AWS, he created 10 EC2 instances. Okay. and his responsibility is to manage the configuration of this 10 EC2 instances. That means whenever there is a security upgrade, or whenever there is a some default installation that has to be made, or every organization has some compliance rules. So every time there are some packages that have to be monitored or changed, or should fall into the compliance, this DevOps engineer makes use of Ansible, okay, and he updates the configuration of 10 EC2 instances. Now, if he was using Puppet, so he had to do the pull model. Okay, whereas if he is using Ansible, he has to use the push model. So what is a push model? Push model is nothing but he can write this Ansible scripts at one place. Okay, you can call it as your laptop. Okay, so this guy can write his Ansible playbook on his laptop, and he can push the configuration to 10 EC2 instances. Okay, so the 10 EC2 instances that he has created, all that he need to do is he has to just execute the Ansible playbook, and the configuration is updated in a push mechanism from his laptop to all the 10 EC2 instances using the push model, and everything is updated, right? So this is one major difference. And the other difference, or the other advantage that Ansible had, was Ansible uses a agentless model. This is a very important thing. Okay, so being agentless, or what do I mean by that? That means when somebody was using Puppet, okay, so he had to follow the master slave architecture. So this master slave architecture is called in different ways. So some people call it as master node, some people call it as master slave, or some people call it as master agent. Whatever it is, it's a master slave architecture or master agent architecture. So what happens was, so let's say this DevOps engineer, again the same example. So he has his laptop, or he has his master Puppet server. Okay, so he created one master Puppet server, and for all of these 10 EC2 instances, he has to configure these 10 EC2 instances as slaves. Okay, so he has to configure all of these 10 EC2 instances as slave 1, slave 2, and slave 3, just like you do it in Jenkins. Okay, and once you are done with all of these configurations, Puppet can make the changes on this respective EC2 instances. Whereas with Ansible, the advantage is that it's a agentless model. That means you know you can just put the names of these servers. Okay, just put the names of these servers in a file called as inventory file. Don't worry, we'll take a look at this file tomorrow, and I'll also explain you in detail where is the location of this inventory file. Okay, what is the thing, like you can just put the IP address or the DNS of this server. Okay, if you have resolved the DNS, you can put the DNS. If you just have the IP address, you can put the IP address, and just have the passwordless authentication enabled. Okay, what is passwordless authentication? That means this master, okay, or the laptop in which you are running your Ansible playbook, should be able to connect to this EC2 instances without any password. Okay, so that also I'll show you how to enable a passwordless authentication. So don't worry about these two things. One is passwordless authentication, and one is the inventory file. So in general, what you have to understand is you don't have to do any configurations on your agents, or in Ansible there is no concept of agents. But just for your understanding, if you are comparing Ansible with Puppet, in Puppet you have to do some configurations on the agents. That is, you have to configure a master slave architecture. You have to there are some ways of tokens and certificates using which you always connect to the master, and once that is done, Puppet will start working. Whereas in Ansible, it is a agentless approach. That means you just have to add the IP address. Okay, even the passwordless authentication is a very simple thing. All that you need to do is just enable your write your Ansible write your EC2 instance IP address in the inventory file. And once you write the IP address in the inventory file, okay, it is like click of a button, or by just running your Ansible playbook, all the configuration is updated on this 10 EC2 instances. Now, why is this important? This is very important because in this dynamic environment, or in this dynamic world, what happens is you can get, you can always tear down or scale up your servers at any given point of time. Okay, so let's say there is a Christmas, or there is some public holiday, and you are expecting your company's load to go up. For example, the best example is, let's say on a specific day, okay, the IRCTC is going to scale up their servers, or during some holidays, or during some time IRCTC has decided that okay, during this time we are not going to get so much load, so let me scale down. So this is a dynamic environment. These days, everybody are adopting the dynamic environment. Okay. So there is always a good chance that you can scale up or scale down your servers. So with Ansible, because it uses the agentless approach, even if you are scaling up your instances 10 times, 100 times, all that you need to do is just get your IP address, public IP address, and add the public IP address to this inventory file. Okay, that's it. And if you have the passwordless authentication, you are good to go. This is the basic of Ansible. And Ansible has also come up with a new topic that is called as dynamic inventory. So by new topic, I don't mean to say that it is a topic that is introduced recently. It was there, but it was only introduced after this existing topic. And with the dynamic inventory, what has happened is Ansible will auto detect. Okay, now you don't even have to go and update your inventory file. Okay, previously you have to at least go and update your inventory file. But with the concept of dynamic inventory, what has happened is if you are creating 100 new servers in your AWS account, Ansible is capable, okay, by just making some settings, or by adding some there is a INI file. I'll also show you that. So by making that changes, what you can do is you can ask Ansible that, okay, whenever a new EC2 instance is created on my AWS account in a specific region or in a specific availability zone, directly consider it as a server that has to be managed by you. Okay, so Ansible will understand that, okay, so XYZ person has created a new server in this region and availability zone, and I am configured to understand that, okay, this new server is something that I have to manage along with the existing servers. So the world or the life of configuration management has become extremely simple using Ansible because of this agentless architecture of Ansible. Make sense? So this is about agentless architecture. So what are the two things that we have discussed? If I am comparing Puppet with Ansible, or if I am comparing Chef with Ansible, that Puppet was using the pull model, whereas Ansible is using the push model. Puppet is using the master slave architecture, whereas Ansible uses the agentless architecture. Okay, so these are the two things. And the third thing, and the very important thing, you know, is Ansible is pretty, okay, it is very pretty easy with both Windows and Linux. Okay, so the support for Windows and Linux is very good with Ansible. I'm not saying the support of Windows and Linux is equal, or I'm not saying that Ansible supports both Windows and Linux as good as each other, but at least Ansible has very good modules with respect to Windows as well as Linux. So if you are using Puppet or Chef, kind of sometimes it becomes very tricky to manage Windows servers. But with Ansible, after the Red Hat's adoption of Ansible, or once Ansible has become Red Hat Ansible, I have personally seen a lot of Windows modules that are introduced to Ansible, and now Ansible at least supports Windows fair enough. But with Linux, it is amazing. So this is the other thing. And the fourth thing, okay, that is Ansible is pretty simple. Okay, what do I mean by pretty simple? So if you are talking about Puppet, okay, so for Puppet, you have to write your configuration files in Puppet language. Okay, so you have to learn a new language. There is a requirement for you to learn about the Puppet language. Whereas with Ansible, it is simple YAML manifest. Okay, so Ansible is using a global language that is understood by most of the DevOps engineers already. Okay, so YAML is some programming language that most of the people are already acquainted with. Okay, and what Ansible has done is you have, Ansible has allowed the engineers to write their playbooks in the YAML manifest. Whereas in the previous case, if you are using Puppet, you have to learn something called as Puppet language. So this is a fundamental advantage, right? Whenever somebody is trying to learn any new tool, what they would do is they would look at, okay, so what programming language is this tool using? And whenever they realize that, oh, okay, it is using YAML scripting. So you understand that, okay, YAML is also used in Kubernetes. YAML is used across multiple other things in the field of DevOps. So let me use YAML only for Ansible also. So that is one of the fundamental advantage again. And so these are the four differences that we covered till now. So let me repeat. One is we talked about the pull and push model. Then we talked about the master slave architecture. Then we talked about the support of Windows. That is very good with what do I say, Ansible. And the final thing that I covered here is that Puppet is using Puppet language, whereas with Ansible you use a simple YAML manifest. The language that is used in Ansible is YAML. Okay, so these are some of the things that we covered. And okay, just a second. By saying that, okay, by saying that, I don't mean that Ansible does not have any disadvantages. Okay. So now I have been talking about Ansible a lot, and I said that Ansible is the best tool that is used for configuration management. Do I mean to say that Ansible does not have any disadvantages? No, definitely I don't mean to say that. While I said you that Ansible has good support to Windows and Linux compared to the other configuration management tools, still people that use Windows servers have slight problems with Ansible because the configuration management with Windows is not similar to the configuration management with Linux. So with Windows, like you find it slightly difficult even when you have advanced Ansible modules. This is problem number one. And the problem number two is that when you're talking about the debugging, which is very important for any programming language or any tool, right? So whenever the things are going wrong, okay, so you always need a mechanism to understand, okay, what did I do wrong? It's not like you go to the code and read through the code entirely and understand what is the problem. Instead, if there is a mechanism for you to understand that, oh, okay, uh, let me look into the logs, or let me look into the debug logs and understand where has the playbook execution went into a problem, okay, where the playbook execution has ran into a problem. So Ansible does not do good with the debugging, so it has to improve a lot with respect to the debugging. And there are also some issues with the performance of Ansible. Okay, I'm not saying that the again, I'm not saying that all the three above things are bad with Ansible, but these are the areas where Ansible can improve. One is the Windows support with Ansible, one is the debugging. Like right now you can run Ansible in a debug mode, but still the debugging logs of Ansible are not that easy for DevOps engineers to always understand the problem. And then there is some issue with the performance of Ansible. So Ansible today can manage thousands of servers, 10,000s of servers, but when you're doing some parallel execution, or when you are dealing with different like some 10,000 or 100, how do I say that? Like, yeah, 10,000s of servers, you might run into some performance issues of Ansible, and Ansible is dealing with these problems. Okay, so these are some of the things. And one advantage that I forgot to mention with respect to Ansible was you can write your own Ansible modules. Okay, so Ansible is basically written in Python, and let's say you have an application. Okay, so for example, in your organization you are using a application. For example, let's say you have FI load balancer or Nginx load balancer. Okay, so you can definitely write your Ansible modules for these things, where any developer across different organizations, okay, for example, in your organization owns FI load balancer, or your organization has some XYZ load balancer. Okay, so what you can do is, as part of your organization, you can write some Ansible modules for, let's say, installing load balancer, or deleting the load balancer, or removing some configurations from the load balancer. You can write your own Ansible modules, and anybody else, like let's say this is organization called XYZ, and then there is some DevOps engineer in organization called ABC. Okay, so once you write this Ansible modules, you can share them using Ansible Galaxy, and these people in ABC can use the modules that you wrote. Okay, and they can configure the load balancer. Okay, so there is a bridge in between, and that bridge is called as Ansible Galaxy. So using Ansible Galaxy, you can basically share the modules. So there are other advantages of Ansible Galaxy as well. Don't worry, we will also talk about that. But the concept that I wanted to explain you was, using Ansible, you can write your own modules for your applications, and anybody else in the world can use it, like any other open source tool, right? So for example, you have Terraform, you have Kubernetes, you have anything, like you can contribute to that specific application. Like in this case, you can contribute to Ansible, and you can help towards the enhancement of Ansible. Okay, so give back to the community and get back from the community as well. So for example, there might be some organization like even ABC might write some Ansible module that XYZ might use, or XYZ might write an Ansible module that ABC might use. Okay, so sharing is always possible with Ansible. You can always support towards the enhancement of Ansible. So these are some of the key concepts, and let's talk about some interview questions before we go to tomorrow. So tomorrow, like I told you, that I'll explain you in detail practically how Ansible works. So we'll do a live project. I'll show you how to write an Ansible playbook, what is the structure of Ansible playbook. Okay, so how to create an Ansible playbook and how to update the contents in Ansible playbook. Everything end to end we will see. We'll create 2 instances on AWS. Okay, don't worry. And through my personal laptop, I'll show you how to write the playbooks on your personal laptop. I'll push the configuration to GitHub. Even anybody else who is watching our videos tomorrow, they can pull the code from GitHub and they can execute the Ansible playbooks and update the configurations of their EC2 instances as well. Okay, fine. So no, this is the thing. So now let me talk about some Ansible interview questions. Don't worry, I already had I already have 18 most asked Ansible interview questions on my channel. So if you are looking for 18 most asked interview questions, okay, but if you are looking for Ansible interview questions with answer, don't worry, go and search for this video on my YouTube channel and you will find some interesting Ansible interview questions and their answers, which are most commonly asked. I'll also try to put that link in the description. You can check for it. Okay, so what are some of the interview questions till the topics that we have discussed? One is one of the common interview questions is people ask, what is the programming language that Ansible uses? Or have you ever tried to contribute to Ansible or write some custom modules in Ansible? So for that, you will say that Python is a programming language which Ansible is using. And you can write your own models using Python and contribute to the Ansible. And if you wrote any custom modules, you can talk about it. If not, you can directly say that there was no requirement, but because I'm comfortable with Python, I can always write a module whenever it is required. And then the question is, does Ansible support Linux and Windows or only Linux? So this is again, like I mentioned in the video, the answer to this is Ansible supports both Linux plus Windows. Okay, and how does it support is, for Linux it uses a protocol called SSH, and for Windows it uses a protocol called WinRM. Okay, so WinRM is a protocol that Ansible uses to connect to Windows, and Linux, for Linux machines, Windows uses a protocol called SSH. Okay, so this is one of the commonly asked question, like, does Ansible support Windows and Linux? If yes, what is the protocol that Ansible uses to support Windows, and what is the protocol that Ansible uses to support Linux? So I explained both of them in one single answer for you. So this is question number one. This is question number two. So today, because I did not cover a practical scenario, I'm only talking about interview questions that you can understand at this point of time. In tomorrow's video, we will cover more interview questions, and tomorrow's video is going to be a bit lengthy. That's a alert for you, whoever is going to watch tomorrow's video. Just be sure that video is going to be slightly lengthy because we are going to do project, and we are also going to talk about some interview questions. Perfect. And now the question number three is, definitely interviewers will be keen to understand what is the difference between Puppet versus Ansible, or the question can vary. What is the difference between Chef and Ansible? Or the question can be like this: why did you choose to use Ansible over the other configuration management tools? Now, I think I have explained this pretty well. In the starting slides. If you want to look at the answer for this again, you can just go back to the 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the video, or at the start of the video, and try to understand the difference between configuration management tools, or why Ansible is used, most widely used in the field of DevOps. The fourth question people usually ask is that, is Ansible push mechanism or pull mechanism? So that is again something that we already covered, right? So Ansible is push mechanism. We already learned about it, right? Why is it push mechanism, and how does the push mechanism help over the pull mechanism, and all of these things that we learned. And the next question is, people usually ask you, what programming language that Ansible uses, and the answer for it is YAML. Okay, so you use YAML manifest in Ansible to write your Ansible playbooks. Okay, and there can be another interview question. Okay, so the other interview question can be, why did you like, because we are always talking about these things, so the common interview question is the common interview question here is that, does Ansible support all the cloud providers or not? Okay, so today you have AWS. Okay, today you have Azure and GCP. So this is not at all a tricky question, and the answer to it is very simple. So you have to answer that for Ansible it does not matter about the cloud provider. What matters to the Ansible is that your public IP address. Okay, do you have SSH enabled to this machine, and is the SSH for this machine is allowed to access from your Ansible host or from your laptop. Let's say you are writing Ansible playbooks or executing your Ansible playbooks on your laptop. So the only thing that is required is this machine has to be publicly accessible, or at least there should be SSH connection that is allowed from your Ansible machine. Okay, only then you can automate. The sometimes interviewers try to trick you asking, does it support AWS, Azure, or GCP? But don't be confused. The answer for it is very simple. You have to tell them that, okay, it doesn't matter where your instance is. It only matters if it is public or if the SSH is allowed from Ansible to these machines. So that's it. And if it is a Windows machine, you can say that if WinRM is allowed to these machines. Okay, so perfect. So these are the 6 interview questions, and in tomorrow's video, like I told you, we'll learn about more interview questions, projects on Ansible, and I'll also show you various. Sorry. I'll also show you various other topics of Ansible. So if you like the video, click on the like button, and if you have any feedback for me, do let me know in the comment section so that we can improve or we can cover that topic in tomorrow's video, because it's going to be a project only session. So there is no theory that I'm going to talk about. It will be full on hands-on and full on practical session that we are going to do tomorrow. And as always, if you haven't subscribed to our video, don't forget to subscribe our channel and share it with your friends. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.